Good afternoon. Welcome back to another rendition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. You are tuned into the critique portion of our lesson and critique series, talking about Speedlights on location with the wonderful Sony Artisan of Imagery, Tony Gale. Tony, what's going on?
Not much. How are you?
Doing just fine. How about yourself?
Very well. The weather's a little humid, but other than that, beautiful. So I'll take it.
I haven't been outside today, but I imagine it kind of has that muggy feel to it. But we're going to get things spiced up today. You won't even be worrying about the humidity once you get these images on the screen, right? Was that
Absolutely. Get in the zone.
There we go. Well, Tony, I'm going to let you take it away. And I will see you in a little bit for some commentary. We don't really do Q&A on these, but if you guys do have any questions, hey, why not? Feel free to get them in. And if we have any questions to go over, any commentary, we'll go over that at the end. Tony, I'll see you in a bit.
Sounds good. Thanks. Hi, everybody. I am Tony Gale. I'm a Sony Artisan of Imagery. And today we're going to be doing part 2 of the lesson and critique series we're doing, Speedlights on Location. This is the critique. In addition to being a Sony Artisan of Imagery, and thank you to Sony and the B&H Event Space for allowing me to do this, I am also a BenQ ambassador at Manfrotto, ambassador in X-Rite, Colorado. And I am a commercial people and portrait photographer based in New York. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my background before I start critiquing. Coming up, we have another lesson in critique, experimenting with photography next week. And then the following week, we have a critique of the images that you submit of experimenting with photography. So please, 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 please submit, because otherwise I have nothing to talk about. Coming up, aside from my events, there's a whole ton of stuff. There's a bunch of stuff with Andrew Geraci, Scott Robert Lim, Thibault Roland, Autumn Schrock doing her yoga for photographers, a bunch of stuff with Mahesh from Seattle, a bunch of great Sony events at B&H Event Space. All of that's on the B&H Event Space website. I encourage you to take a look. I also always mention the Sony Alpha Female Facebook group. It's a very inclusive group. People are very nice. When people ask questions, they don't get attacked. They do a $500 micro grant every week based around a theme. So if the theme is pickles, whoever submits the picture that is chosen representing that theme wins $500. You do not have to identify as female to enter or to win. And I really encourage you to take a look. Also, Alpha Universe, great website just to learn about photography and Sony. Even if you don't shoot Sony, there's a lot of great information about photography and photographers there. And coming up next week, the 12th, there's a Sony Alpha Community event in San Francisco. So if you're in the Bay Area, I encourage you to take a look. It's free. The first 250 people get some cool swag. You get t-shirts customized. You can check out gear. There's photo walks, all sorts of fun stuff. And alphauniverse.com. I mentioned that as a great resource for if you shoot Sony or just photography. Also, it's a great place to find out what's on sale. So if you're looking at considering something and you want to see if there's a discount, it will list all the discounts currently available, and then you can go to B&H and buy it. So for example, there's discounts right now on some of the Xperia phones. I use the Xperia Pro I. Great phone, great camera in a little phone. And Alpha Universe forums, also available for us through alphauniverse.com. All right, lesson and critique, Speedlights on Location, the critique. So a couple of things. My background, for those who don't know and why I'm critiquing, although to be fair, I think anyone can look at other people's work and offer to critique if it's asked for. I would certainly not encourage people to critique other people's work if they don't want that. Some people just want to show you a picture and they don't want you to tell them that you like it or don't like it or what they think could be better. I started photography in 1993. No. Is that right? Yeah, 93. When I was living in Bellingham, Washington, where I grew up. Started with a film camera. I took a bunch of pictures. I thought I was good. In retrospect, I really, really wasn't. You know, we all have a couple good pictures from when we started, but for the most part, we're constantly growing and getting better. When I started, everybody, all my friends were like, oh, this work is great. I wanted to be a photographer, all this stuff. My pictures weren't good. I didn't know nearly as much as I thought I did. I made a lot of mistakes. But you just keep doing it, you keep improving, you keep growing. Every picture that has ever been made by anyone, I firmly believe can be better. Every picture I've ever taken could be better. I believe every picture anybody's ever taken can be better. And hopefully we're all striving for that. So with that in mind, as I go through, I'm going to talk about the images that were submitted. I think because tomorrow's a holiday, we're a little light on the submissions, so it may not take very long. I'm going to be saying what I think. If it's your work and I say something and it resonates, great. And if I say something and you disagree, that's also fine. I had a photo, I should put it in here, that I took in Seattle at night that I really liked. I went to a critique of a quite well-known at the time fine art photographer who saw that picture and told me he didn't know why anyone would take that picture, which felt like a gut punch to me at the time. And then later I had, pictures in coffee shops all over Seattle and bars, and the person organizing that picked that picture for the press release, and it was picked up in local newspapers, and they ran that picture. So the picture that the famous photographer said, I don't know why anyone would take, other people really liked. Last week, I did a photo review with potential clients in New York, and one of my last reviewers said, I don't really know about your location portraiture. It doesn't really work for me. I think you should do the studio stuff. That was after like 8 people all said, oh, I really like the location portraiture. This is my favorite work. So different people, different opinions. We all have valid opinions, and opinions are just that, they're subjective. So agree, disagree, it's fine. I'm going to say what I think. I'm going to say, well, I don't know what I'm going to say. It's going to depend on the picture. But bear that in mind. If I say something and you disagree, whether it's your picture or not, that's fine. All right, so let's get started. So we have this, it's like a wedding picture. I'm guessing that the light, that the speed light, if it was used, was a fill light. That's what it looks like to me on the front. It is a nice moment. The one thing that I think is wonderful about event photography and wedding photography, which I don't shoot weddings because I find them too stressful, and I rarely do events, but I think documenting events like that is really, really valuable. Like, it can't be replaced. Those, we have those memories, hopefully, but being able to say, oh, I remember that suit, or I remember that dress, or I remember those flowers, or that moment, is a wonderful thing. So event and wedding photography, I think if that's what you shoot, I think it's really valuable and important. So assuming that it was a fill light, that's what it looks like to me, because the shadows aren't that dark. I think it's an effective use of a speed light as a fill light, because in looking at it, I'm not 100% sure that's what was done, which means if that is what it was done well, because it's not too obtrusive. It helps, it brings in the shadows, it makes it not too contrasty, but at the same time, it's not too obvious. So a couple of things you might consider. I would maybe consider being a little wider with your lens choice, only because the little girl on her right, I wish that her hand wasn't cropped at the wrist. And it looks to me like the flowers are an arch, because I'm seeing some of them poke down from the top. I'd like to see a little bit more of that arch. And it looks like that dress on the young lady on the left on the front might be blown out. I don't know if you photographed this in RAW. If you did, you might consider going in and trying to bring in some of those highlights if you can. But it might be a tad overexposed with that. But it's a fun location. It's nice, and it really is, to have to capture moments like this, these people will remember this. I assume it's a wedding, this wedding, and that moment forever, in part because of the photos, and that's wonderful. Oh, it looks like same person, also a wedding. It looks like the rosary. I think it's a rosary. So this looks to me like maybe a side bounce light, or a window light with a little fill. Again, if there's a speed light here, it's very subtle, and having things that are subtle and sort of, you don't notice, like sometimes good lighting is obvious and just looks super cool and is good. And sometimes good lighting, you don't notice it was lit and it feels natural. And that can be great too. Often I think light that you can't tell it was lit, it was done well, assuming you can't tell it was lit, but it looks good. Sometimes you can't tell it was lit because everything looks terrible, but this is not the case here. I like the soft side light. I like the shallow depth of field. The finger here too, I think I might shoot just a tiny bit wider, just so that pointer finger at the bottom of the frame isn't quite touching the frame, just so there's a little bit of space. But I like that soft side light. I like the shallow depth field. I like the position of the hands. I think you did a nice job. All right, Mike, you submitted a lot. Good for you. Other people should submit too. So here, to be honest, I'm not sure where the speed light was. Maybe off camera at the front, or maybe it's a little bit of fill from the back. The colors look great on everything. This framing I like. The fact that we lose the top of that arch, the top of the frame, doesn't really bother me. You get a really good sense of place. You get a sense of things are about to happen, but haven't happened yet. So we're just waiting. I think that can be a lot of value. If that's a speed light on the front, then that's really well done. If it's not a speed light and it's just a fill, it's subtle, and I like that too. This is a nice portrait. So this looks like I'm seeing double shadows. So I'm assuming the speed light was to the left. I'm guessing. Well, let's see the big shadows there. Well, there's two light sources because there's two shadows. So I'm not sure if it's two speed lights or if it's the sun in this speed light. But I like this portrait. I like the moment. I like his expression. I like how direct and his eye contact is right at the camera. This too, I wish that there was just a little bit wider so his elbows weren't cropped at the edges. But I do think the exposure is really great, which is not always easy with somebody wearing black and a white background. It doesn't look like anything's lost or blown out. I look, the side light wrapping around is good. We're getting that little bit of light wrapping around to the cheek on the right. It doesn't feel underlit. The light's a little high and coming down. It's a nice portrait. Well done. Mirrors. Mirrors can be so cool. This is also a nice portrait. You know, it's interesting that you've chosen to make the reflection level and the non-reflection with the tension of that angle. I don't think I would have thought to do that, but that's interesting. It almost makes it feel like the reflection is the real world and everything else isn't. You know, maybe it's a science fiction movie where people in the mirror world are the real people. I like the reflection. I think the light looks great. Black and white, I so rarely do black and white and then often don't think about it. And I really like how black and white can look. I think this looks great in black and white. I'd be curious to see it in color too, just to compare. I'm always curious, but I think black and white was a good choice. I like that you framed it with where we can see a little bit the fire escapes in the mirror, and we've got that sense of almost like it's another street to the right, even though it's just the reflection. This one, even though you crop the hand, I'm not sure that it bothers me in the way that some of the others I wish were a little tighter. I think because it's a reflection and we see more of her in the reflection. But I like that. I like that tension. And you did a nice job with the lighting. Another nice portrait. Environmental portraits are so fun. So it looks like we've got some speedlight, fairly soft on the right coming in, then some fill light through the blinds on the window on the left. I like that she's a little off center there on the left. Again, I like the intensity on the eye contact in the direction to the face or with the camera. I do wish that the light on the right was just a little more forward, only because if you look at the eye on the right, there's that little dark shadow here. And I think if the light had moved around just a little bit, that might have been a little bit reduced. I think that might have been better. The catch lights though look great. I like the location. Often in situations like this, I have to move a lot of stuff. I don't know if you moved a lot of stuff or if this is how it looked. But I feel like it's a good amount of things to help tell a story. You know, the stuff on the shelf behind her, the bag on the pillow there, the stuff on the desk and on the shelf. It all helps tell us who this person is, or the Himalayan sea salt lamp. I like that. One thing you might consider, and maybe you did and it didn't work, is I might have considered turning on one or both of those lamps just to see. It might be that there's so much light here that you would never see it. But I like it. I even like the head tilt and the way that she's sitting. I think that you did a nice job. Another nice portraits. So this looks, I'm guessing, a little fill light again. She's under an umbrella, so she's out of direct sun. We're getting some of that highlight on the hair because of the umbrella. I think the composition is nice. Good rule of thirds, which, you know, rules are meant to be broken, but here I think it really works well. Having her off to the side, although I'm looking at, you know, I would also, I don't know if you tried this, you might consider cropping it vertically and seeing how that looks. I feel like I might like that better. The highlights from the sun on the upper right draw my eye a little bit because they're so bright. So if you cropped in so that we don't see that, maybe halfway through that poster, first poster right behind her shoulder, I might like that better. I like the pose though. I like her leaning against the post. If you're using fill light, there's a little bit of catch light in the eyes. I wouldn't mind a little bit more catch light, although much more it would wreck the feeling. But that it is a really beautiful soft light, which is I really like. And I do like that because of the yellow umbrella, the hair on the top of her head is almost going red, more red because of it. I think that's nice. Classic. So I don't know if this is Friends or a band or what, but it feels like somebody from the 70s. So if I had to guess, my guess is it would be people dressed as people from the 70s, but maybe it actually is. It has that feeling. It feels like somebody who was backstage at CBGB's or something. I like that. I don't recognize any of the t-shirts, so I can't say. But it just looks fun. And this is an example where for this kind of thing, direct flash really works well. You know, I'm not generally a fan of on-camera direct flash, even though, as I mentioned last week, There are a lot of people who do it, a lot of people who get paid very well for doing it. It was a really big thing in fashion photography for 10 or 15 years in the early part of the 2000s. But here, there's an authenticity that direct flash gives you. It feels like a real moment. And I think that does it here. I do wish that the woman on the left was separated from the background a little bit more, because we sort of lose her hair against the darkness of the background. So if you could have moved around a little. But if it's a real moment that you just captured, sometimes you just have to do it. You don't have the choice. You can't necessarily say, oh, can everybody move 5 feet to the right? You know, then you're not documenting reality anymore. And I don't know if this was real or not, but I think it's cool. It feels real, and that says a lot. Also, direct flash also feels real. Boy, this really feels like New York, having the cardboard and the trash piled up behind them. I think this is a cool moment. I don't know if these are people you knew or people that hired you, or if it was just people you saw on the street. But I think there is the same thing, that direct flash, that authenticity is very cool. I like the sense of place with the ATM sign, the parking signs, and the recycling, the cardboard. That was one of the strangest things when I first moved to New York, all that trash and cardboard on the street every week. But it really says New York, you know, and it feels, not like I said, I don't know the reality. It feels like just two people that you're like, these people look cool. Hey, can I take your picture? And they said yes. And I like that feeling. Also, if you did that, more power to you. I find it very difficult to go up to people on the street and ask to photograph them. It's very, very challenging. And if that is what you did, I'm impressed. Well done. This also feels like a band portrait. I'm assuming if it was a speedlight, it was bounced off to the left, off of a wall or something. This feels like it could have been a grunge band from the 90s. You know, probably not, but I like that. There was a photographer out of Seattle named Charles Peterson who did a lot of music photography, Nirvana and Pearl Jam and things. Feels a little bit like that to me, although he did a lot of on-camera flash of live music. I like that moment. I like that the two guys in the back are looking in two different directions, and the guy in the middle is looking straight at the camera. It makes me feel like it's a three-piece band with the lead singer in the front. I like the black and white here too. I suspect that the color would be distracting, although without seeing it, it's hard to say. The fact that it's cropped so tightly on everybody in the back doesn't bother me a bit. I think he did. I like it. I'm assuming soft light off to the left. Also feels like a music thing. If this is your work, email me and let me know if this is all musicians or if it just feels like it. Just curious. This feels like a classic, hip hop kind of thing. I like the New York Yankees hat. I think the light coming in from the left is good. You're getting nice separation between him and the background, where the depth of field is a little bit shallow. So the background's not distracting, but it's not so shallow that we don't have a sense of what it is. The exposure looks good. And grills like that bewilder me. But that's what makes the world great, right? Different people like to do different things. I like the engagement with the photographer, the camera. I think the cropping is good. I think the light is good. I think it looks good. This feels like, I don't know if this is the same person as before, just capturing a moment on the street, asking some people to take their picture. And again, the direct on-camera flash really makes it feel authentic. Boy, I love that smile. I love the guy back there photobombing. I think the cropping is good. I also like that you didn't crop in so tight that the person on the left who's laughing in the background is still there. So you get a sense of the people around. Also feels like New York City. I think that looks good. I also think the exposure difference between the foreground and the background is good. So we still have some detail in the background, but your two subjects in the front really pop. If you had added more exposure in the background, they might have gotten a little lost. I think that looks good. Oh, this is a nice portrait. So this looks like fill flash to me. Good use of fill flash. They're backlit from whatever sun there is. And we're filling in with the flash. They look like nice people, like a nice couple. Depending on how much choice you have in a situation like this, it looks like she's wearing a purse probably. I would ask if they could take that purse off because the strap, I think, draws a little attention. It's also causing her top to wrinkle a little strangely. But the amount of fill flash and the use of fill flash looks really great. Similar to the other one, I think the depth of field is good where the background is a little out of focus. So it's not too distracting because it could be, especially with how bright the sky is. And with all the leaves and everything, it's not too distracting, but we still have a sense of place. It's not completely gone. I think I'm okay with the cropping. You know, her arm is sort of cropped mid-arm. There is a rule of thumb on the photo walk we did a couple of weeks ago. We talked about it. When you're cropping a person, part of a person's body, generally you want to crop like between joints, not at an elbow, but forearm or upper arm. Here you're sort of in the middle of the arm, so it feels more natural. I like the little sly smile she has. They look very nice. Another direct on camera flash. Also feels like New York. I'm curious if this is the same person. The cropping here, I think, is good. You're right up to the elbows, but there's still some room on either side, so it doesn't feel too tight. Again, direct onto the interaction with the camera. I like the amount of exposure difference between the foreground and the background. So he's really popping against that background, but we still have a sense of place. It hasn't gone totally dark or black. Again, depth of field looks good. Hands on hips are good. It doesn't bother me that one of his hands are partly in his pocket, the other's not. It just feels like a nice moment. And again, yeah, that on-camera flash, the authenticity is good. Oh, this I think is the same woman as before. This is a really nice portrait. I like the sense of New York. It's a nice environment. It's a nice moment. Looks like a little bit of fill flash again. We're getting those little catch lights in the eyes. I do wish that little highlight on the nose was brought down a little bit. Maybe that's something you can do, maybe not. The cropping is good. I like we're getting almost the edge light from, it looks like a little backlight from whatever daylight there is, so that her hair really pops. I like the framing. I like the green. I like the tree there on the right. The cars there. Usually I hate cars in pictures, but I think here it just helps with the sense of place. I think you did a nice job. All right, that's it. This was a quick one. We'll get Derek back on and see if there are any thoughts. In the meantime, if you have any questions or want to know more, feel free to reach out to me or check out the Sony Alpha things. If you reach out to me and I don't get back to you, please just reach out to me again. Somebody did reach out several months ago with the Sony Alpha 7R3 specific question, and I forgot to get back to them right away. And now I can't because I don't remember who it was or how to find the email. It's just buried in the thousands of emails in the inbox. So please reach out again if you have a question. Derek,
you have it, Tony. You covered it. You always see stuff. I always sit here and I wonder if I see the same things that you see, and you always pull out stuff that I don't even notice. That's why I love sitting here and sitting in on the critiques, because whether it's your images or not, you always gain something when you watch critiques. And it's
And
great.
I'd be curious to see what would have happened if you'd critiqued it. What would you have seen that I didn't see?
I probably would have tore them apart. No. No,
Every picture could be better,
yes.
but I don't think it's that productive to just go in and tell some people the good things, and if there's things that could be better, talk about that too. But when I've been part of critiques where people feel like their whole job is just to tell you every little thing that they think is wrong. And I don't think that's helpful to anybody.
No, not at all. I like your approach where it's, if there's something that's clearly distracting, point it out. Because if it's distracting to you, more than likely it's distracting to a fair number of viewers. And it's more a matter of, hey, I would like to see you try this. Or, hey, maybe if you did this, because at the end of the day, right, where nobody was there, nobody knows what the circumstances were. So it's very hard. A lot of times when we critique images, we don't know, there's images that look like they were candid and they were posed. There's images that were from paid shoots and we don't know that it was a paid shoot and everything was set up. And it was like, oh, hey, well, you did have an opportunity to do this. Maybe I would have tried to do this. So it's like we're not always given all the information, but at the same time, I think that can be helpful when listening to critiques and when critiquing images, is you're kind of handicapped with what information you do have, but that still speaks to how people are going to receive your images, because a lot of times and most times we just get the image. We don't get the story. We don't get any information that goes along with it. So we have to look and react at that point. So I'm on the same page as you. You have to make it, constructive criticism that is going to make the person better. And you can't just sit there. I try very hard not to get into I don't like this. Well, I'm subjective, art is subjective. I'm one person. If I don't like something, I might not be the intended audience, or I might be not seeing what the artist saw. So
yeah,
same approach.
Absolutely. And it can be tricky because sometimes things couldn't be better in the moment, but the viewer's never going to know that.
Yeah.
If it's journalism or documentary work, then it is what it is. But even if that particular picture couldn't have been better, maybe next time we think about how the next one could be better. Because I do firmly believe everything could be better.
Totally.
Every piece of work I've ever done could be better.
Definitely. And there's things that you pointed out that me not being a portrait photographer wouldn't have looked at. But after you pointed it out, it was something where it's like, there was the one image of the girl with that had, sitting indoors, kind of was like, looked like somebody sitting in like their office or apartment. And yes, that one.
Good way there we go. Yeah.
This one right here. Yep. And there was something that just wasn't sitting with me. And I didn't know what it was until you mentioned about the lighting. And it's kind of like, it's like there's edge lighting here and edge lighting here. And the bulk of the face is just kind of this no man's land of, well, the face should have been lit. And it doesn't look like it was lit properly for the shape of the face, or there's just something there, like the way the shadows were. But I wouldn't have realized that without you pointing out, bring the light a little further to the front.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it. Hopefully, we can learn from everybody.
Totally. Well, Tony, a huge thank you as always. Let's hope next time we get more people involved. I love to see the days when we have so many submissions that we can't even get through them all, and I have to answer a bunch of emails to why an image didn't get reviewed.
Where we just do a slideshow where I just say thumbs up or thumbs down.
There we
half a second per picture.
We do quick fire. I'm all for it. A quick fire round.
There you go.
Well,
yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
I'm with it. Look, I think there's benefit for those too.
There can be, yeah.
Definitely. Sometimes I'll like to see, I'll send my images out all the time for people. If I'm submitting for something, I'll send images out and I'll just be like, give me a yes or no. I just want to know, because sometimes there's images that I'm not sure about, or
Yeah.
I'm sure you can relate to this, images that you're personally attached to or in love with, and you just know that it might not be a strong image, but I'm attached to it. Let me send it out to somebody else and see if they're like, oh no, this is horrible. Then you kind of let that affect your decision. Or if someone's like, no, this is actually great, I really like this, then it's like, okay, maybe I wasn't just biased towards it.
Yeah. Or sometimes there's work that isn't quite what I wanted it to be, but no one knows what I wanted it to be.
Ah,
And
yes.
so they are very happy with it. But to me, it was like, oh, I just wanted a little bit more, whatever. And it's not there. So it can go the other way.
Can I ask you, what do you normally do? Because I think that's a great conundrum that we find ourselves in oftentimes, where, especially if you're doing client work, if your client loves the images and you're on something, what weighs more, the client's opinion or your own?
Client's opinion.
Okay.
100%. If someone is paying me to create work for them, most of the time their needs and what I think is the best picture aren't the same.
Okay.
So my job is to do the best picture that fits their needs that I can. A year or two ago, I was shooting some corporate work, photographing for this company that makes industrial doors, like big roll-up doors and things. And nobody from the client could be on site, or none of the marketing people. So I'd take some pictures and I'd email them to the designer and the marketing director. And one of the first things I got was, stop being so arty. Like, I was trying so hard to make these pictures look really cool and interesting. And they're like, that's not what we want.
Interesting.
Just show the latch. That's it. And you know what? They were right. For their needs, that was the right choice. Now, for your average person who's looking at a bunch of pictures, you're going to flip right past it. But if you're looking for latches, you just want to see that.
It's a good point. I guess there's there's an application for everything. The artsy way isn't always the best way. And
I didn't even think it was that artsy. I was just trying to make it interesting.
You can't turn the part of your brain off. I think we're locked into it, where it's like, I've even tried to just take snapshots sometimes. And it's just like, no, you start doing the work. And I'm just like, I set one of my cameras, my everyday carry around camera, I set to JPEG only. And it's really just to try to get myself into the mind state of, these won't be edited. They won't be touched. Whatever I click and upload, and that's it. And that's what's helped me get family pictures out a lot better. Because I think there was like a 5-year stretch where I had family members like, hey, you never sent us the pictures from this birthday or from, mom and dad's anniversary. And it's like, oh, see, I don't want to edit them. But you want them, you want your best work to go forward, because you never know who's going to see your work. Every time I think the work isn't going to be seen, someone defies me. I'll send a folder of proofs, and next thing you know, there's proofs all over the internet. And it used to bother me, and now I'm just like, you know what?
Just got to let it go.
Happy with it? I'm happy with it. That's it.
Absolutely.
Well, Tony, another great critique session. You guys have the dates up there. You have all of your ways to contact Mr. Gale here. And Tony, we'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you. Have a good holiday, everybody.
Thank you as well, Tony. And that wraps it up. Another rendition of the BNH virtual event space is in the books. Catch y'all next time.